Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmitz, and this is episode 14. I've got Justin Seidl, co-founder, CEO of Vertbase. We're talking crypto, baby. We're also going to talk about counting the cost, getting your kids off Facebook, and you got an idea that's going to make tons of money, dude? Well, it's going to bomb. How do we know? Justin Seidl says so. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, so I'm at Copper State, bright and early. It's 9 a.m. It's like, I don't know, -5 outside.
Yeah, pretty close.
I've got Justin, is it Seidl?
Yep, correct.
Justin Seidl, CEO of Vertbase, right? Blockchain technology. This is awesome. We're having a blast. We're staying warm. What are you drinking this morning?
I'm drinking a Mexican hot chocolate.
Yes.
Not a coffee drinker.
Not yet. We can change that. But your wife is.
Yes.
Your wife, wife loves her coffee. But what distinguishes a Mexican hot chocolate from a normal hot chocolate?
I think it's dark chocolate with a pinch of cinnamon instead of a milk chocolate blend. So
make it dance a little bit.
A little bit.
Awesome. But you didn't go for the whipped cream.
I did not. It's I gotta watch what I'm consuming.
Yeah, then there's me who's sipping the breve latte, right? Like, yeah. And actually, if we're gonna have confessions right now, when you opted out of the whipped cream, I almost thought in my head about saying, "Well, hey, I'll take his whipped cream."
I should have.
I should have.
It's free.
But that's awesome. Oh, cool. So it's been fun. You and I have never met before, but we connected on LinkedIn. Was really intrigued by the work that you're doing. Really cool stuff. And cutting edge in a sense with blockchain technology, right? But before we kind of get into that and your experience and what you're going after and then the juicy details of, your failures, I'm curious. Our listeners might not know who you are, right? We just met, 20 minutes ago.
Yep.
So give us some context. Like, who's Justin? Where do you hail from? What do you love to do? Yeah. Who are you, man?
I'm Justin. I originally come from the local area of Green Bay. The last 5 years with my wife, we spent it down in Chicago. There I was the head of product for a small agency, and we did a lot of work with a lot of startups, a lot of early ideas, and really kind of getting them off the ground and getting them to the MVP stage where they have a concept and they can either go out and get users and prove what they're doing or go raise some capital to kind of bolster it to the next stage. And we loved it. I loved being in Chicago. I thought it was just a great learning experience to get out of this small pocket of the world and kind of culturally go explore and learn things and interact with people that have a completely different viewpoint of mine. And we both loved it. We absolutely loved it. We wish we were still somewhat there, but at the same time, we love being back home. Green Bay is both of our hometowns. We have all of our family here. We were raised here, and there's something about that smaller Midwest community that just kind of draws you back and really kind of helps foster a family. And ultimately, that's why we moved back. So I have a 1-year-old now.
Nice.
And
boy or girl?
Boy.
Fun. Okay.
Little boy. His name's Ace. And
Ace, love it.
And we didn't know we were coming back to prepare to have a family when we purchased our house. The day we found out that we actually they accepted our offer on our house, we also found out that we were pregnant. So it all kind of
wow, that's awesome.
It was a very big day, but it all kind of fell into place, and ultimately we're very happy just because we have him in the same community that we were raised. We have the family surrounding that helps us out, and I like to kind of bring back what I've learned in Chicago and my time doing remote work across the world and bring it back to this community to really help out the growth of this little ecosystem that we have.
Yeah, and it's growing, which is exciting. There's some movement, which is cool. But you grew up in the area here?
Correct. Yep.
Green Bay proper?
Just outside in a little town called Luxembourg.
Yeah. So where'd you go to high school? Luxembourg Casco? Or?
Yep.
That's
right.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And So for those that don't know the dynamics in Green Bay, there's a great divide in Green Bay called the Fox River, and you're either an East Sider or a West Sider, and they are very different. It's kind of funny, but if you grew up on the West Side, you wouldn't move to the East Side, right? Or supposedly you would, and then vice versa. If you're East Sider, you wouldn't move to the West Side.
Are you from West Side or East?
West Side, baby.
So
West Side.
So I told my wife when we were looking for houses, I would not look on the West Side of Green Bay, and I'm not joking. I live in De Pere, but on the East Side of De Pere.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's. I don't know what it is. It's funny. So, and for those of you guys who know the demographics, checking on the map, Luxembourg is starting to kind of get into the peninsula of Wisconsin, also known as Door County, and so it would be technically on the east side. It's amazing. Like I don't know what it is. Funny enough, though, my parents, after 30 years on the west side, longer than that, because my dad, my great grandfather settled in Hobart in the early 1900s, right? So it's like. But they picked up and sold their home and moved to the east side. Like, who does that, right? It's like, what are you guys doing?
It is a strange divide. I don't know how to explain it, but you even feel like you may go to the west side, Home Depot or Target.
Yeah.
To go over to the east side, you just feel like you're a stranger in your own town.
Oh,
it's
sure.
just a slightly different feel.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel, vice versa. But
oh yeah. Well, it's funny. So like we're out in Hobart, it's like the west side, and. We lived in Minneapolis for like 8 years, so not as big as Chicago, but big enough to experience traffic and all that kind of stuff. Right? Like you get 2 seasons, snow and construction, right?
Yeah.
And it would, so I mean, some days like with my commute downtown, it could be an hour and a half, or just one way, right? Just depending on the day, and so we moved back. Like our biggest beef was having to drive 20 minutes to Costco because it was all the way on the east side, right?
Yep.
Right, so it's funny, but Green Bay, it's a great place to raise a family. It's really neat, small community, and you can hate the Packers, but there's something neat to check out the history behind the team and all that kind of stuff. And,
yeah, it's a good talking point for people outside the city.
Yeah.
And then when you can actually kind of elaborate on how special of an organization it is, and then going further, you take the football out of it, and you look at what it's been doing with the city, the ties to the city, the economic growth, and the impact that it has on the city. Even just like with what they're trying to do to kind of further bolster the economy, having everything they're doing with the Titletown district. Titletown Tech is helping startups in this area really kind of put a foothold, giving them visibility with Microsoft. That's a big deal, and that's the start of a very small ecosystem that is starting to grow and expanding upon paper and logistics industries. It's looking for other industries to grow into.
Yeah, or to further solve problems within those industries. Excuse me, further solve problems within those industries, but leveraging more cutting-edge technology, which is exciting. So.
And ideas.
And ideas, exactly.
And fostering, not putting people in a box and saying, answer the calls, fill out your spreadsheets and push paper. Yeah, Green Bay is still a very traditional type of place and community for the most part. Not that that's bad, that there's a lot of good there. But to your point, it's exciting to see some of the innovation that's coming in, especially through technology. And the Green Bay Packers have been a source of attraction for that type of investment. And I would, without the Packers, I mean, Green Bay may have never been on the map. I mean, honestly, it honestly would probably be like a lot of other Rust Belt communities. Think of like South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah.
You thrive on a factory or an industry for 40, 50 years, but as environment, the political landscape changes, you start to maybe lose that advantage, and then next thing you know, those jobs are being shipped out or outsourced, and you can't keep up. Or maybe the pay doesn't reflect how the rest of inflation and the economy is moving, and so you start to fall behind as a community. So it's I think we're very fortunate to have an asset like this in our community to really kind of secure what we're doing in our long-term future.
Yeah, a lot of potential, and it's really exciting too. I've always thought about, talked with other guys, like, what if, the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay had actually been placed downtown back in the day, and how that could have changed things. For folks, it's kind of actually out towards Luxembourg.
Yep.
But the past 10 years, they've been doing quite a bit with economic development downtown Green Bay, and it's just exciting.
Yeah. You know why they originally weren't placed downtown?
No.
So when it was being proposed that I'm an alumni to UWGB.
Sweet. Okay.
So when UWGB was being proposed, they were going to be a liberal arts college.
Okay.
And so the blue collar community didn't want at the time, in the 60s or maybe late 50s, basically a bunch of hippies running around. So their solution was to push this liberal arts college out into the country. It literally was out in the middle of nowhere when it was first built and constructed. So, they pushed it north and said, we're going to leave it out there and kind of separate it from the blue-collar community of downtown. And, I think it ultimately, it kind of took something away, but they've both learned to kind of grow from how that concept evolved and started.
Yeah, that's I never knew that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, even with I'm actually a fan of liberal arts education in the sense of it's training someone broadly to think analytically, to problem solve.
Yep.
And there's different systems of liberal arts educations, and maybe they're not all created equal. But that is interesting, and it actually probably gets at the dynamics of the tension that you're describing from back in the day in the place of the college. And
I think it was just like a perception at the time in the media.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It didn't really have anything to do with what the school was actually doing, what the students really wanted to do.
Yeah.
There was a lot of protesting going on across the nation within campuses.
Interesting.
And it was tied to that liberal arts stigma.
Yeah.
And I think that's ultimately what scared them, which it's amazing how that impacted them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where they're at now. Another interesting kind of Green Bay, Brown County, history that it impacted the university is they aren't allowed to have sororities because more than more than 12 women in a house in Brown County is considered a brothel, which are illegal. So they couldn't have sororities on campus, or they can't really support sororities. They do have one, but they can't live together. They can't be on campus. Can't have shared housing, and they're not really recognized by any official sorority national chapter. They did have 2 fraternities. I may need to be fact checked on this, but from what I heard, the 2 fraternities battled quite often and had a lot of pranks until one accidentally burned down the other fraternity's house, and so they put a kibosh to that as well. So
that's awesome. We're getting all the legends here, Justin, this morning. The urban legends from UWGB. That's crazy, man. And I'm not sure if I should say this on air, but maybe, the way that some sororities run themselves are closer to brothels than not. That's just kind of funny. Anyway, I didn't even know we had those laws. That's crazy. So, so you graduated. Did you graduate from UWGB?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So, kind of walk us through from there. Your time there. What did you study, and how did you get from there to where you are today?
Yeah, I think at the time I was really kind of struggling with what I wanted to do. Coming out of high school, I was very creative. I took a couple computer science classes in high school. I took drafting classes and a little bit of art. Not really I didn't like the traditional fine arts kind of studies.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted to do something creative. I wanted to design and build. I was a big fan of Legos when I was a kid. I still have all of them. There's a couple thousand Legos that are now at my house. And I came into UW Green Bay with the mindset of kind of going into computer science.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they don't, not to kind of rip on them, but the program's not very strong. And I didn't realize that at the time. But I wanted to build websites. I wanted to just kind of go out and build some of the things that I was starting to use on my very first computer at my parents' house. Experience that. And ultimately, they kind of taught some very traditional coding, engineering for, some for a career that would go work in the blue collar force and work on computers here in the area, which is great for some, but not the creativity that I was looking for.
No.
And so ultimately I was frustrated. I wasn't doing very well. I ended up switching to the design arts program so that I could kind of focus more on graphic design and kind of just getting more into the media that I wanted. They still didn't quite have a web design program and a web development program at that time established, but I got really lucky and I got a job at the university union, the student union that's on campus. And I had part of their promotions team, they had a position for a web designer developer. And for the most part, it was self-taught. And really, they were open to, if you can do some, take the time to go learn and do more. And I was able to build out, over my 3 years with them, multiple websites for a bunch of student organizations, and departments all throughout the campus and the university.
Awesome.
And really was given the opportunity to just grow and learn and build as I learn. And that ultimately drove me into kind of being like, okay, for a career, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to build websites, build apps. Apps I don't even think were really a thing back then because the iPhone had just come out when I was in school.
2010.
I started 2008, graduated 2011. Or late 2007, graduated 2011. So right when that first iPhone was coming out, AT&T had like the foothold, so you had to have AT&T. It was.
Did you geek out over the first iPhone? Were you like standing in line?
Not quite, because I didn't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
And like I was broke at the time, so I'm like, yeah, my cheap knockoff like app phone is perfectly fine. It had Facebook on it, so that was good. And then I just fell into that niche, and that kind of helped me then through the rest of my career. Jumping from small agencies, I got into startups relatively quickly out of school, which really kind of opened up my eyes into like there's much more than just going to take a job at an established company and working under somebody and doing a set amount of responsibilities. When you get into a startup, you really have to be open and do everything. And
it's the Wild West.
Yeah, you gotta be flexible.
Yeah. You
might have to go do something you don't want to do, or you might have to do something you've never done before. But if it helps the team, you kind of have to go do it just so that you all save your jobs or progress forward in a successful manner. So that I was exposed to very early on, and it just kind of led me to jump around and find the next opportunity. And along the way, I kept that mentality that I learned at the university that I'm not just a designer. I shouldn't just focus on design. I'm working with development teams. I can expand my own development skill set as well. And that ultimately allowed me to become a very good designer with like a development background in the back of my head to help me with my designs. But it also made me a very good developer as well. And I've been able to build out a lot of the things that I've implemented here as an entrepreneur in a much faster clip than what somebody that doesn't have that background in. So it helped me transform who I am by kind of staying open-minded and being flexible and learning along the way.
Isn't that kind of amazing? Like, you maybe felt like you hit a bit of a wall at UWGB until you got that gig for the student union, and it's like who would have thought at that point in time how much that had prepared you? Oh, it was almost like an apprenticeship, like it's on the job, except you're just learning, and how that propelled you to saying like, and shaped you for a startup culture, right? It's like no one's telling you what to do. Like, here, you got some skills, go figure the rest out.
Yeah.
And then it's saying, okay, great, it's the Wild West. If I need to build a house, I'm chopping down some trees, right? If I need to eat, I'm shooting a moose, like whatever it is,
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, have you ever thought about how that time specifically really kind of shaped you, and then even the rest of your story and progression? I mean, to where startup culture, it's just you were built for it.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think so. I owe a lot of that to my manager at UWGB at the time at the student union. Her name's Kelly Cramp. She's now over at UW Oshkosh doing very similar things.
Cool.
I've been in touch with some of the people that have graduated at the same time that I worked with together. Everybody's kind of had the same experience.
Yeah.
We we had responsibilities and we had deadlines and we had projects we had to get out. But at the same time, she gave us a lot of flexibility that it was about learning and becoming better at what we were trying to do and not necessarily just doing what we were told to do.
Yeah.
And so she helped really foster myself and a lot of others that I've seen grow into some very interesting careers that are you can look back and appreciate on because it's something more than just a job.
Yeah.
I'm loving what I do. It's my life, it's my passion, and it's not just me clocking in, clocking out, calling it a day, and getting out of there.
Yeah. She helped to kind of cast a vision and purpose, and other people are rallying around them, and they're excited to be part of that. And they're not just saying, "Well, here's your checklist for the day."
Yep.
It's saying, "Here's where we're going, and you're gonna help us get there. So go." And that's exciting, man. And that is very true of startup culture, right? You're rallying around a single vision, common purpose.
Yeah.
And you're trying to bring in folks that love that have a certain skill set, and then you want to unleash them, in a sense, get out of their way to let them do what they're good at.
And with startup culture specifically, you don't know the answers.
Right. Right.
This isn't a billion-dollar industry or company that's been built over years that has a refined process.
Right.
And even that's a very dangerous thing for established companies to fall into, is if you're not listening, you're not learning, and you're not experimenting and kind of having a free will to accomplish tasks, you're going to do the same thing over and over again, and that might work in that short-term plan, but long-term, you might just start doing the same thing that's going to drive your failure.
Dying, right?
Exactly.
I mean, even if you sketch back the past 50 years to where you see this long tail effect of like technology just how it's shaping industries, causing companies to go out of business a lot faster, sooner. If companies aren't thinking through how they can grow and adopt technology to help them transform and develop and expand their capacity, they're probably dying. And that's kind of what you're saying. It can work for a time, but when you get to that point, you can really hit a period of just stagnation where you're not growing, you're not innovating, and if you're committing no resources to that, then you're probably not just staying in this myth of neutrality. You're probably actually falling out of the game.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's technology can be the great equalizer. Yeah. There's a lot of technology back in the day, and the knowledge to implement that technology is what made you wealthy. Yeah. And then grabbing that wealth and separating yourself to protect your wealth has been a traditional thing in the past to kind of keep others from growing in wealth. But technology is accelerating faster than some of these organizations can keep up with, and that's ultimately equalizing out some of this wealth that we're seeing.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
Yeah, I mean, even technology itself is a form of wealth, right? Like if you think about it, and how it can be a terrific servant and a multiplier, which is really exciting to think about. I mean, think about this: we're sitting here at Copper State. I have a microphone plugged into my iPhone that's recording us on GarageBand, and I'm going to take this and give it to the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's amazing, right?
Think how amazing it was when the Egyptians had papyrus, and they developed a language and a writing style, like a framework to actually communicate what they were trying to pass along from one person to the other. That's evolved to the radio, to the iPhone. How crazy the iPhone. I remember it coming out in 2007, or right around that time, and everybody was blown away, not by apps or the fact that you had the internet on your phone. They were blown away that you had a camera, a phone, and basically like a PDA of sorts or a music device all in one. And that was the big thing for them. And now it's just secondary. You don't even think about that as being a great service. It's just mandatory in your phone now.
Yeah, you expect it, right?
Yeah.
When, previous generations could have never imagined that potential. I mean, it is crazy.
And one of the areas that I'm in is, so I deal a lot with blockchain technology.
Yep.
And we can kind of dig into that a little bit further, but at its core, blockchain technology is, think about like kids building blocks.
Yep.
You know, you stack them next to each other, or you chain them together, and each block maybe has a letter on it. This one's A, this one's J, this one's B, this one's T. And that's telling you something about that block. And on top of that, they're chained together and they're visible. So the blockchain is a public ledger. Everybody can see that this is actually what is happening with this transaction. It went from this person's wallet to this person's wallet.
Yeah.
That's it. It literally opens up a transparent ledger to handle data.
That's awesome.
And one of the most important things I think we're going to see in the next 10 years is a heavy focus on data, specifically your own data.
Yeah.
Because that wealth gap that I was talking about, what's now happening is the companies that can iterate on technology faster, they are realizing that the money comes from data. And the data is everything that they can control. They can control what their users see, do, how they interact, and they can map out patterns that ultimately drives them success. We've seen issues with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. Politics are being heavily affected by social media influence, whether it's true or false information that's being put out there. We don't need to go into that,
Right,
but it's being affected.
It's the reality, objectively.
Yeah, in a very crucial way, and outside sources are realizing they can affect a lot of different outcomes by attacking your own data.
Yeah. I mean, even think about it as like, let's say I were to run an advertising campaign on Facebook for this podcast, right? Facebook, if without running the campaign, if they didn't deem this content as valuable enough, maybe half my friends would even see it, right? Which would then push me to go and pay them money to advertise. Right?
Well, it's probably less than that. It's probably less than 10% right now.
And so it's like the way that data can be manipulated to make you but to see a better option to spend more money in that regards, or the various manipulation of data is crazy. And so what you're saying is that to say that doesn't happen, you'd have to be pretty naive, right?
Yeah.
And it can happen for good. There's manipulation doesn't have to be a bad word per se. It can happen for good, but it can also happen for ill. And blockchain technology is helping to bring more transparency to that arena. Is that correct?
Yeah. I guess a simple example that we could think of is there's nothing wrong with giving somebody your data.
No.
Because a lot of times it helps you with the overall tasks in your day or what you want to do, and if you have that comfort level, by all means utilize it. It's great. But Facebook, Google, Twitter, Amazon, these companies, at the most part, they act on good behavior.
Yeah.
And we want to believe that they act in good behavior, and I think they ultimately try to act with good intent. But at any point, they can and they have the control to act with ill will.
Yeah.
What blockchain has the capability of doing that, that isn't available now, because you're relying on those companies' databases that are centrally stored. Blockchain allows you to know exactly where your data is, where it's being used, and have the ability to lock or pull it back at any point. So let's say I authorized Facebook to use my name, my email, maybe some of the history of my family and my friends and family network. So I authorize that data to be used on Facebook because I want to use their service. Something happens, I don't trust Facebook, I then put in and say basically lock that asset on the blockchain that I sent to them so they can no longer go and utilize it. I mean, it's
So they've got no copy of it. There's no way for them to regain that
they
access.
could copy it. They could eventually copy it to their databases. But I think what can happen now, and we're starting to see in Europe, is there's a lot of privacy laws and data privacy laws where, for instance, in Europe, they can't store user data for more than a year. You know, if this user's not active anymore and they're not maintaining their account, that data needs to be removed. You need to notify the user everything that they're doing. Give them that little, do you accept these cookies, little pop-up that hits up on the website.
So annoying.
It's annoying. It's not the most ideal design.
But at least it's bringing transparency to things.
And it's going to affect change that in the future we'll have better policies.
Yeah.
We'll have a better way of actually distributing data. And I think in 10 years, what's going to be the biggest impact is people realizing that their data is worth a lot more than what they originally thought. And the generation below us, our kids, are probably going to be mad at us for the amount of stuff we post on Facebook and Twitter about them.
Yeah, that's actually so interesting. That's a really interesting thing about it. One thing that I think about, and even doing this podcast and what's come out in other interviews, is the choices and actions that we're making today. Are we thinking about just what we can accomplish in this life? Or do we look at our work, our lives as stepping stones that are being laid down so our kids or our next generation can go further faster than we can? And my wife and I have talked about, what would it look like to write a letter to, a generation, 10 generations from now, talking about, the work that we've done and why we did what we did and why we built what we built, and to inspire that generation that we will never have met. In a sense, it's the walking dead, but it's the talking dead, to inspire them to be great, right? To do greater things with their life. In a similar sense, the principle there is that there are consequences for our actions, right? Ideas have consequences. We see that played all throughout history. And what we're saying here is we're making choices every day that are going to affect either positively or negatively. There's no middle ground. Either positively or negatively a future generation. And in this case, our kids, and how much we're, it's so cute, do that again, and now
it's difficult because we grew up when we were just being introduced to this technology, and we kind of became hooked on it, and there wasn't really any control on making sure
people didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's there's studies. It is more addictive than Oreos and cocaine.
It's designed that way, right? The dopamine effect and scrolling.
Exactly. And so it's very hard, and we want to share, and we want to get that feedback that our child's cute and that this is so awesome and we're adorable and the parenting we're great at. We're looking for that confirmation now, and I'm victim to it. I do it all the time. I share posts with my wife. She shares posts as well.
Hey babe, can you like this post for me?
Yeah, it's just look at how cute he is, and then we share it. And I do stop and think okay, maybe sometimes I need to pull back a post or something, because he is going to be 10 years from now, 15 years from now, going to have his own social profile or life on the internet. And we're affecting how he's portrayed and the information about him that is available online, more so than we were. Think of our childhood, nothing was online. So we have the luxury of not having any records of anything from probably 1816 before that. Our kids, from the day they were born, because, every baby that's born now, guaranteed their photos being taken and put on Facebook.
Oh, yeah. From the minute they come into this world.
Exactly.
Even before that, while they're in their womb, right?
And that's
ultrasound photos and all that kind of stuff.
True. I didn't even think that far back, but that's a scary thought when you start to trust these organizations with all of that information. They're going to know your children a little bit better than you are just by habits.
I've heard it said that having an iPhone in our pocket is like an alien. We don't really know what it is, what it's capable of, and yet we just treat it like it's our, like a harmless little, friend. And it goes back to the idea of technology as well. It's a powerful tool for good or for ill, and we should be increasingly more conscious just how we're using it and trying to think through the consequences of how we're using it, right? And are we going to be glad? And I'm glad you're talking about this in some senses, because I don't think a lot of people have thought about whether or not their kids as adults would be really happy if we knew now what we might know then about this kind of technology, the ways it can be taken, used, and manipulated. If we would go back and do it over again, in a sense, what not to do, would we have made the same choices? Would we have put all those videos and pictures and all that kind of stuff 20 times a day? And
there's a balance in life.
Yeah.
There's no matter what you look at, there's balance.
Yeah.
And whenever there's too much of one thing, there's always a deficiency somewhere else, and it comes back. And if it hurts you bad. And hopefully, we can correct that before it gets too far, so we're not going down these paths of abuse with data. But I think, Elon Musk is one of those individuals that he loves technology, loves advancing technology, but he also understands that we ourselves have certain limitations, and we need to be able to grow with this technology so the technology doesn't outpace us.
Yeah.
He's worried about artificial intelligence. It is a very real thing that we can make something smart enough to become smarter than us. And when it hits that point, it'll be so far smarter than us that you cannot stop it.
Interesting.
And if it's not in a secured box, if it breaks out of Pandora's box, look at what we're carrying around. How many people are on Facebook? 3 billion, 4 billion? And if this artificial intelligence is living on the internet, look at how many people it can affect. Look at the types of manipulation it can cause that we may not even realize because it's smarter than us to hide itself.
Yeah.
So he's proposing technologies where you have a neural interface. Our brains connect directly into this technology. That needs to be developed first, along with a lot of regulations and safety guards to make sure that we don't create our own extinction based on technology that we create.
That's so fascinating.
It's a rabbit hole of thought, and you kind of really get into it, and it's a lot of conspiracy doomsday type scenarios, but it's very real. We sometimes are our own worst enemies in what we do because we have a fascination to do these things.
Yeah, it goes back to the idea of unintended consequences, and we don't know what we don't know. So that's crazy. Yeah. So Justin's basically saying, run for the hills, hide your kids, hide your wives.
I won't tell you where my bunker is.
Right. Well, so let's pivot a little bit with that idea of technology and the things that we're creating, and tell us more about what you're doing with blockchain and Vertbase.
Yeah.
So unpack it for us. What are you guys doing?
Sure.
How are you changing the world?
At its core right now, Vertbase was set out 2 years ago when Bitcoin was hitting $19,000 in value, and a lot of just craziness around it. There was really only 2 or 3 places you could go in the United States to go and buy blockchain, like Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, with fiat money, the US dollar. And that's because there's a lot of regulations behind it. It's very difficult to kind of track money laundering and KYC to make sure you know the customer and it's not terrorists or drug dealers trying to wash money through the system. So there's a lot of things that have to go into handling the user aspect and the flow of money between these parties. So it was very difficult. But the big 3 that we're in really only supported 2 or 3 blockchains at the time, digital assets. It'd be Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum. And this is great. They were supporting them. But then what you would have to do if you wanted one of the other 1,000 assets that were out there, a lot of them scammy, not well-done projects, probably just playing around or taking advantage of people. But there's a lot of really strong ones as well, where they have forward-thinking ideas. They've kind of forked off from Bitcoin or Ethereum to say, that's cool, but we want to try this and expand upon the technology in a slightly different way or vision. And they needed support. And if I wanted to go buy one of those assets, it was me going to what's most known as probably Coinbase go to Coinbase, buy some Bitcoin, and then I would have to send that Bitcoin to an exchange that was, I remember one of them was in Korea, and the entire website was in Korean, so I had to use Google Translate on the page to make sure I understood what was going on. I had to send my Bitcoin there, putting a lot of trust in a website that if I lost it, I'm not getting it back. Yeah. It's a foreign company that...
High risk.
Yeah. And then I had to go get whatever I wanted, trade for it, and then bring it back to my own wallet. And there's just like 4 or 5 steps, and there's all these little like 32-digit, 33-digit addresses that are more complex than a credit card number that I had to remember each step of the way and input. A lot of friction and kind of nerve-wracking, especially when you're dealing with a larger sum of money that's being transacted. And I'm like, there's got to be a better way. Coinbase does this. Why can't we do it? So ultimately, I put this to the community that I was in, one of the blockchains, and I said, I want to build what Coinbase has. Just a simple, like not a crazy peer-to-peer marketplace exchange, not have to worry about this or that. You sign up, it's a US-based company, you go through the whole KYC process like we're supposed to legally. That's kind of like the risk. You have to provide that data for us, and then you can go and just easily connect your bank account and buy whatever you want. Yeah. And it's there, and then it's sent directly to you. And me putting that out there, I posted it on Reddit. I got a massive amount of feedback, people saying this would be awesome, I fully would support this. I threw up a landing page. In the first week I had 5,000 people join our wait list.
Awesome.
So I'm like, okay, I've got something here. I've got to kind of iterate on this and see what I can do. I had looked into the development. I had looked into like how to kind of build this out. I looked into the federal regulations of what was going on. Everything was good. I'm like, I can do this. I didn't actually see how deep I'd have to get to actually accomplish it. Banks were against us.
Oh, yeah.
Payment processors were against us.
You're playing with people's money.
State level was against us. It took me 8 months. Within me deciding January of 2018 of launching the company, I had the platform built within the first 2 months. But I wasn't able to launch it until September 2018, which was 8 months later, or 9 months later, because it took me that long to get a bank account.
Wow.
And it was tough. 17,000 banks in the United States, roughly, probably more. I'm registered with FinCEN, which is a government-regulated body for money movement. I was registered with them as a money services business to make sure that I could transact money like I was doing. And with that, money services businesses only have roughly around 1,000 banks that they can utilize for that type of bank account. At that time, there was 3 rumored banks that would support crypto businesses. And I reached out to all 3 of them. One of them just completely ignored me. One of them laughed at me. The one I'm using now laughed at me. But I was persistent, and I flew out to New York. I actually met with them, talked them through what I was trying to do. They happened to be Coinbase's bank at the time, so they understood what was going on. And they ultimately helped me out for a high fee, but they helped me with that. I was able to launch and start proving out what I was doing. But that's what we do at a core with Vertbase. We help people buy and sell different digital assets, and we're kind of at the next phase of branching out and exploring what digital assets really are. Maybe not like just cryptocurrency. It could be another store of value, and being able to facilitate the transfer of that wealth is something we're very interested in.
So would you say it's, if you had to put it in like a short soundbite, it's currency exchange?
Exactly. Yep.
Platform aligned to exchange currency.
If you were to, go do a simple currency exchange, like you're going on vacation to Mexico and you want to grab some pesos, take your US dollars for a fee, they exchange it over to that currency. We do the same thing. For a fee, we'll switch it into Bitcoin for you. Yeah.
And so then the other thing we uncovered in this story is that there's massive opportunity for someone who wants to start a bank to support crypto businesses, right?
Yeah. Well, now it's been 2 years. They've caught up. They've started to realize that this is happening no matter what, whether they like it or not. JP Morgan and the likes have all started their own asset class that they're kind of working in. And the banks that have been open to it, they're starting to realize, or they've generated quite a bit of revenue from being receptive to this. People are joining in and saying, okay, yeah, I want to start getting a piece of this pie. And so we have a lot more options now. We've been able to be more flexible with those options, and it's the progression of the industry is getting healthy.
That's awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
So, Justin, why do you keep waking up every morning, getting out of bed, and offering a medium of exchange for folks for digital currency? Like, what's that purpose, that pulse within you that keeps you wanting to give your life to this work and even expand upon the idea of what you guys are doing at Vertbase? Like, what's the greater purpose in it?
Yeah, I think at the start, I wanted to build something. I've always been somebody that's wanted to build, create, iterate, and I found something that had user feedback that really kind of propelled me forward to say, okay, this is something now that does have legs, that can move, and is going to help all these people. And said, yeah, I want this. So it was also going to help something that I wanted. And that was the first part of it. That was the goal. But as I kind of dug into the blockchain space and meeting a lot of the connections that I have now, and kind of how that's helped evolve my views and what I want to work towards, there's a greater technology that can affect a lot of people in a positive manner. It needs to be done properly. It needs to be done with a great set of core values that helps drive the overall vision, because it can be easily manipulated, and we're seeing bad actors in the space trying to manipulate it for their own good, much like past industries and technologies have done over the history of human evolution. But it opens up a lot of freedom when it comes to finances, data. It's a cheap metaphor, but it's the next internet. When you think back when the internet first came out, we took everything that was in the physical world and tried to put it on the digital world and said, okay, we mail people important information. So they created email. Great. That's like one of the most underlying technologies that we use for everyday communication. And that's great. But then you get to a point where you exhaust what's there and what you can easily transfer over into the digital space. And these entrepreneurs then are left with actually iterating on things that we never thought about. Yeah. If you can clear your mind to days before Facebook existed or Twitter existed.
There was a day before Facebook.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember. Let me check my news feed.
Can I Google that?
Yeah. But that concept of I understand Zuckerberg was creating a yearbook, but it evolved into a place to share your thoughts and your life.
An online community.
Twitter, 164 characters when it first launched. Yeah. All you can do is write something in 164 characters. It doesn't even have to be proper grammar English. It can just be like, yo, what's up? I'm chilling at the Chili's eating chicken wings. And take a photo and share it. Who would have thought that would have been beneficial to our society and would have been something that people would want to use? But it evolved into that. It's evolved into so much more that we have internet services or platforms that we never thought we would utilize, but now that are available. And I think blockchain technology can do that too. We're trying to take this amazing technology and inject it into all the current stuff that we have in front of us. But what's going to start coming out of it is things that we've never thought were possible, because we have technology that allows us to do that.
It can build the infrastructure, if you will.
Correct. Yeah. And allow us to manage and orchestrate the transmission of data in a more controlled way, maybe a safer way, but also in a way that's more efficient. The biggest thing that holds back a lot of ideas is inefficiency and time. And if blockchain technology can speed up, the disbursement of thousands of different pieces of data to fractional shares of something to hundreds of thousands of individuals like that, instead of me having to manually fill out a report and then emailing it to every single person, you gain there. So there's a lot of things with that, and I want to be a part of that new frontier that's pushing forward. I kind of fell into it. I've always had a passion for fintech and using technology to better my financial wealth and everything else that every other person that I'm affecting. And this is like that next step forward. There's a use case there, and we can continue to bring that forward.
That's awesome. That's a great way to say it. I mean, you're pioneering on a new frontier here, which is exciting, And exactly what we were talking about before, while all you see is uncharted territory, right, and you're pressing into the unknown, you also have the vision of what this could be for Ace, your son.
Yeah.
What this could be for his kids and future generations, and that's exciting. So you see a much bigger picture, much more than just Justin, and much more than just Vertbase. It's saying, hey, what's this ripple effect that I can help to create as we conquer unknown lands, if you will, proverbially speaking?
Yeah,
that's exciting, man. That's awesome.
Think of our ancestors if they're contributing to building the railroads, or they set up
Edison with the light bulb.
Yeah. Or even. Like, what if one of my ancestors set up one of the first fur trading posts here in Green Bay, or worked on it? Like that created an economy, that created the city, that ultimately created like the Green Bay Packers, and fostered opportunities for so many other people. So starting small, figuring out a niche that I can kind of build upon. It's something that I've been good at, and I have a lot of passion for. So being able to work in that, I've been blessed, and I kind of think long-term vision of how can I positively affect people, and how can I do something that matters, and not just do something to do it.
Yeah, building something so much greater than yourself, right? Yeah, it's awesome.
There's more wealth than just monetary wealth.
Right, yeah, right. Yeah, and money's one, technology's another. I mean, there's so many different things that are forms of wealth, exactly, forms of capital.
What's the most valuable thing to you in your life?
Oh, time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the exact answer I was looking for. Yeah. So time is finite.
We rehearsed that beforehand.
Yeah. There's a lot of people use that saying, at the end of your life, you're going to have two numbers in the dash.
Yep.
What's most important is what you do with that dash.
Yeah.
Because you're born, you're dead. That's all that matters with those dates. But everything that's in between that dash, it's just what you do with it. And so, time is finite. Spend it wisely.
Yeah, we in a previous episode with Amanda Johnson, episode 6, if you're listening to this, that's exactly what was on her billboard. Don't waste your dash. Yeah. So it's you got, you're born, you die. What are you doing with life in between, right? And it's amazing. Yeah. You've heard the saying, the pain of rejection is better than the pain of regret. And I think you could replace rejection with failure, or rejection with the pain of discipline is better than the pain of regret. Like, you don't want to be there at the end of your life and realize, if I had only done this, if I only made better use of my time here, why did I do this? Why did I give my life to building somebody else's dream, rather than saying, hey, what am I good at? What do I enjoy? And what are my economic opportunities? And then going to build mine, right? Not just for myself, but for the sake of the world. And I think that's really important. I hope that's one takeaway from our time together in this interview, conversation, and from the podcast as a whole, that people are inspired to go do that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've thought in those terms, and I know I've always had a bigger idea for that, like what that involved. Yeah. But I actually, like the dash thing, a lot of it kind of came from this last weekend. Our pastor, Sean Hennessy at Life Church, was talking about that. and he made it. It's a new series he was doing called "You Have 1 Month to Live." And what would you do? And I naturally thought, well, I'd quit my job. But it was more so like
you would drink coffee is what you do.
Yeah. or like, what would you do what would you do that's different? Would you really go on your phone and Facebook?
Yeah.
You know? Is it worth like scrolling through Instagram and checking out everybody else's life? Or would you just like stop and just be like, you know what, I got 1 month left. I'm going to spend it with my kids. I'm going to do everything with them and enjoy every moment with them. And things like that. Like, you know, what are we doing? Is it worth what we're doing?
Yeah.
You know, you're doing this podcast because it's something that can help others, but it's also something that can help you and you're passionate about. That's worth doing, not sitting behind the desk and plugging away at some numbers and being like, I gotta build my value, I gotta go forward in my company, and then I gotta take home a better paycheck. For what though? You know, are you losing that time, which is more valuable, with your family, because you're trying to make more money for them to have a better life, but you're not involved? So are they having a better life? It's difficult. And there's that balance again in life, but it's something that I'm starting to learn right now, especially now that I have a kid.
Yeah.
That I can't do what I did before having a kid, where I'm just grinding, and maybe not using my time in the most efficient manner.
Yeah. Because using time doesn't mean you're just shoveling dirt 24 hours a day, right? There's ways to leverage time and to make smart use of the time in that regard. One of my favorite quotes, Martin Luther said, "If I knew the world was going to end tomorrow, I'd plant a tree today." And just seeing the value in our work, and the value in it's so much more than just about ourselves and what we might perceive or benefit from in this moment, in this day, even in our lifetime. And I think more people that grasp that vision, in the sense of, even if the world is going to end tomorrow, I'd plant a tree today, it's still worth it, even if we never see the fruit of our labors. And that can help us to think through, when we start kind of thinking through, what if I had 1 month to live, what would I do, right?
Yeah.
Would these things even be worth it? Absolutely, because it's about so much more than just you, right? And when we start to kind of grasp that vision, it's almost like we've been living our whole lives on the floor, and like then we finally stand up and realize,
why have we been doing this?
Yeah, there's a ceiling. It's 10 feet tall. You step outside, it's like, oh my gosh, there's miles of sky. Like, there's so much more upside here than down. Like, what have I been doing my whole life, right? It's like, for the first time, like, you feel like you're living. The first time, like, you're standing up on 2 feet, right? And it's like, let's go. You know? Yeah,
definitely.
All right, I want to know, who's next? Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
All right, so we'll get into the good stuff. So you're reflecting over your career. You've had some good successes, and you wouldn't have gotten there or experienced those successes if you hadn't done something right? So kind of talk to us as you look back in your life and your journey, your story. What are a few things that kind of rise to the top as far as what you've done right in life to help you see some of the success that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think one of the very things that I've touched on right away is that just being open and flexible. I can easily have classified myself as a designer and said, I'm a designer. That's my role. That's what I'm doing. But working with teams that were willing to teach me how to become a developer as well, to build out everything that I'm designing and create a product, create a service. That was one of the best things that I kind of took on, is that enabled me to go out and do so much more. It gives me flexibility if I'm looking for a job. In the past, I have this, but I also have this skill set to follow. And I think that applies in a broader sense to everybody, that even though you're working for a role, be open to learning what else is going on right next to you or above you or below you. And that makes you a more well-rounded individual, and you see a different perspective. And on top of that, you might find yourself in one of those roles, and that ultimately might give you a better position, a better foothold on where you're going next, because you have an advanced skill set or a more well-rounded skill set than somebody that just stuck in their lane and did exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, that might be the problem. Is if you're comfortable staying in your lane, you're only as good as long as that lane is open.
Yeah.
But if that lane closes, you're then, you know, at the age 40, if your job changed or is no longer necessary, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, or same thing with business.
Yeah.
So I've one of the early things I learned, and I continue to still learn, is just be open and flexible and learn. If there's opportunity to pull in some knowledge that you don't have, take it, because it's the it will never hurt you to know more.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of really getting at the heart of liberal arts education. Like, so you want to be broadly read and learned, and then you also want to go deep in something,
Yep.
right? And you're not going to be an expert in everything that you read and learn, but it's going to help for what you do go deep in. And it also equips you to have the tools to keep on learning, problem solve, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like exactly how you were describing it. If you're in a particular role, an accountant, learn about everything else that's going on around you. You're not going to be an expert in those things, but it's going to help you to do your job better because of the perspective you're gaining, the different mental models, all that kind of stuff. You're seeing how you fit into the whole better.
Exactly.
And then if you ever needed to switch lanes, you're going to be much more prepared, much better prepared to be able to do that. Yeah. That's good.
I think it's a little more fulfilling life too. You don't learn something, become complacent with it, and say, okay, I've learned what I need to know. You know, and it could be maybe even more specific to your field. If you're a designer and you're a great illustrator, but you don't know how to design interfaces for websites and platforms, well, you can learn that and you can get into that, or over repetition you can become better and better. Same thing, vice versa. And you just need to be open to it, because you can uncover something that you might not have thought you were going to even do in your life.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've followed over my years on social media and just kind of like keep an eye on. I've watched one artist go from doing his own ad agency to then design studio to moving out to Hawaii. He loves to surf. And then he just kind of opened up like the garage in his home in Hawaii and started painting. And he paints on like palette and old driftwood, like waves, like scenic waves. And a lot of it comes from the inspiration of what he sees every day when he goes out surfing in the morning.
Cool.
And they're gorgeous. And he sells it for $5,000 a pop.
Yeah.
So but that's his passion. And he got there from just like iterating and moving down this path of like, whatever, I'm learning something new. I want to try painting. He tried painting. He loved it. He became better at it. And while it wasn't his like 9-to-5 job, it became his 9-to-5 job, and it became his passion. And it's something now he does that he probably didn't grow up thinking he was going to like paint waves and be an artist living in Hawaii doing everything that he loved during the day.
Or sell them for $5,000 a pop, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's you got to just kind of follow that and keep yourself open to new opportunities.
That's cool. Yeah, and realize that in that process of iteration, there are things that you can't anticipate that you don't know. And that sometimes, even though that process of iteration feels inefficient, it can help to get you to where you want to go long term better, right? Yeah, that's interesting. That's
and you never know what opportunity is going to present itself.
Yeah, right.
You never know what comes out of anything that's new, and you just happen to be positioned well because of where you're at and what you're doing, and maybe the flexibility you created for yourself. That also you're at the forefront of something that nobody else understands, and it positions you for an opportunity in your life that far exceeds what you could have imagined.
Yeah. What are you 3 feet away from? Right.
Yeah, that you don't realize until you look back 10 years later.
Yeah.
And it changed everything in your life.
Yeah. Or had you stopped, right, or changed course, like you would have missed it completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, good stuff. So So you didn't do everything right? Right, I'm assuming you're human.
Nope.
You're flesh and blood. So as you look back through your journey, your story, your experience, your time learning, your time being a part of business, your time helping to build a business, what are one or two failures that kind of rise to the top of your mind where it's like, man, if I could just have that one back, or maybe they're the ghosts that haunt you in the middle of the night type of thing. Like, what's one or two things that come to mind for Justin?
I mean, I don't think anything haunts me. They're lessons that I've learned that have made me better.
Yeah.
And with what I've said that I've done right, that was not something that I had. I had to learn that. And part of that was I can be very stubborn at times, have a lot more pride than what I should in things. And ultimately, when I first started my career, young student, what have you, I was dead set on wanting to do things a certain way. And wanting it done, I'm a little OCD in like how things have to be laid out, have to be designed, developed, the way business needs to be handled. And it drives a lot of people crazy, but it also puts me in a situation where I might not be listening to fully what's going on.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when I was younger, I had a couple of bosses that had to tell me, like, relax. Okay, you're wearing all your emotions on your sleeve. I know when you don't like something, but it's not helping the team. You need to just be receptive and take constructive feedback a little bit better and learn from it.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, it took a while.
Yeah.
I was young, thinking I was unstoppable, and I had a clear vision for how I wanted to be successful. And that ultimately, just like beating my head into a brick wall, I wasn't going anywhere. And it took a while to realize that, I don't know everything. Pull back, start listening a little bit more, and then learn and be flexible. And that's what taught me to start doing things right. The second, kind of the playoff of that is, that was personal. That was me just being a human being, not necessarily responding to feedback in the best manner.
How would you say that in a way, if you were to tell someone else, don't do this, how would you phrase that first thing? Don't be stubborn, don't be et cetera. How would you phrase it that way?
Yeah, don't be stubborn, and don't have too much pride in what you're doing. Because you have to be flexible enough to change course.
Is it the pride that you think that kind of makes someone stubborn?
Especially if you're building something or you have an emotional tie to the work that you're doing. Pride comes in and it really takes over because you care about it. And pride's not meant to be a negative, but it often makes a negative because of your emotional attachment to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to learn is, as much as I really cared about something, as much as I really wanted to do the absolute best, I don't know all the answers and I don't know the perfect solution, even though I think I do on paper. It might not be. And when you hold on to that pride of, no, it needs to be this way or it won't be successful, you not only hurt your teammates, but you hurt the overall vision of what you're trying to accomplish. And that actually leads into, so that was more of a personal thing for me, building on that. And that leads into probably the second failure of mine is oftentimes I would jump into my ideas and say, oh, this would be a great idea. I'm going to go do it. And the double-edged sword of getting to the experience level of designing and being able to build out anything I want as far as like an internet service or product or platform goes, I fell a lot because I said, this would be really cool to build. This would be really cool to build. Let's put this on the internet. This would be cool to build. But I never actually did the research or the user feedback to justify that it was something that's worth going after. So I know you actually talked to Craig Sweeney.
Yeah.
So we were co-founders together on Shift Savings.
Cool. Awesome.
And I think we had this really great idea. Over 50% of Americans at the time did have more than $500 in their savings account.
Okay, yeah.
And so the natural goal was, let's help Americans save.
Yeah.
What we forgot to do, or what we didn't see at the time, was that we should have probably understood why Americans are not saving.
Interesting.
Because even though we provided a service for them, they still didn't want to save. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that, like, why put $20 away when I'm not going to see any gains on it? Less than 1% interest. What's the point? I could go buy something with that $20 and it'll make me feel a lot happier than just letting it sit.
Or even there's a good argument to be made that the $20 could be better invested elsewhere. If something's gaining 1%, it's actually losing. Right?
Our society turned into a society that needs instant gratification, and savings accounts that our grandparents built up and lived on. That mentality is gone.
Yeah.
It's not something that kids are taught these days. It's not there. And so we ultimately failed because while we thought we had this amazing idea and we could build the technology to do it, there wasn't a need for it.
Yeah.
And the users weren't interested in it. So it ultimately failed because we built something that nobody wanted.
Interesting.
And that is probably like the biggest thing I've learned is you need to go out and prove that whatever you're doing, somebody actually wants it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to waste any more of my time building something that I think is a great idea, but nobody else does.
That's really good. There's have you heard of Dan Kennedy, a marketing guy?
No, I have not.
The late great Dan Kennedy. He talks about sometimes we want to lead with our passion in life and then our purpose and then figure out market and market demand, and that's backwards, right? Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is that when it comes to our ideas and having ideas, and specifically what you had a lot of ideas. Just because to you were great ideas, if you don't actually test them with the market, then you can't build a business around it. And so Dan Kennedy, really simple formula, but you could probably find it from a million other people. Figure out a market, figure out if there's demand in the market, right? And then align that with your purpose.
Yep.
And then something that you can ultimately be passionate about, and then monetize that, right?
And a lot of what that evolves into, I think, is you already have a passion before. So you're going to go out and test what you're passionate about by proving out that there's need and that there's users that want it. And as you dig into that now and you get into the weeds of why do they want it this way over that way? Why does this work and this doesn't work?
Right.
How can we iterate on that one tiny little piece that makes a massive difference? You become hyper-focused and extremely passionate then about that project because you went through the work to actually prove that what you're passionate about is worth being passionate about.
Yeah.
Instead of, I think I could like doing that, and mistaking that for passion and thinking that could be something that's successful. And so you try it and you invest a lot of time, and as soon as it fails, you're like, I just wasted all that time. I'm no longer passionate about it. And it puts more of a negative effect on the situation than what you think, and that's ultimately what kills a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
I think I agree on all points. You got to start, and you got to really verify that this is something people want.
Yeah. Because otherwise, if it's something that aligns with your purpose that you're passionate about, but there's no market or market demand, you have what we call a hobby, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's about all it is.
And it could be a successful one, but you also need to then have that reality.
So how would you talk about that again in a way to say don't do this as your in your experience? Making sure that you're thorough and testing out a demand for your market. How would you say that in telling someone, hey, don't do this?
Sure. There's plenty of ways you can go out and find answers. It just takes you asking.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I took on it was a monumental task for me to get a bank account with Vertbase. I spent 8 months. I had to travel to New York and talk to, frankly, assholes that had all the leverage in the world.
Yeah.
And they knew it. And they kind of like positioned themselves when we were talking in the sense that we don't need you. And actually, I have an email from one of them that said, listen, I'm trying to help you out. I like you. We don't need you. You're not going to be much for us for business. So unless you come to us with an offer that will make my time worth it, don't even bother.
Right.
And like I struggled through that. But the reason...
Cold, hard reality, folks, right there.
Yeah.
Right? The lesson there is whoever has the power in the relationship, or whoever needs the other person more, does not have the power in the relationship. And the cold, hard reality of building a business and pitching it to either potential investors or people that you need to help build it out. That's the cold, hard reality. Right? You're probably
Absolutely.
not alone in that story of getting that type of email.
Leverage is everything.
Right, yeah.
And power.
Yeah.
And when people know they have the power, that's one thing.
Tell you.
That's one thing I want to learn to be better at is if I'm in the position of power, I need to realize that I once wasn't in a position of power.
Yeah. Don't be a jerk about it.
Exactly. And what kept me going through all that was the fact that at the very beginning, I created a Reddit post, had a couple hundred upvotes, a couple hundred comments. The community followed up, did an AMA with me, had just as much publicity and viral recirculation going on with it. My wait list blew up to 5,000 within the first week. I was like, okay, I have never seen something like this. While it's still small in viral terms, it's something that I've never seen before on any of the products that I've worked on.
Yeah.
So I have something here.
Yeah.
And this is something that I need to pursue because it is a need. I have validation from these users that they need this. So let's go do it. And that ultimately drove me as in the past, I was going off my ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe a way to phrase it would be like, don't assume demand. Is that kind of how you would sum that up? Or
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like until you understand the market need for it, you don't have anything.
Yeah.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnotttodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
All right, so don't let pride make you stubborn. There's a way in which pride can really cement us. And we need to be on guard about that for flexibility. Don't assume demand. It's great, especially for the entrepreneurial type or thinker. A lot of ideas flying through. You ask my wife, right?
Yeah.
And just because we have an idea that we really, in our own process of analysis, think could really be valuable, that people would really want and need, right? Doesn't mean that there's actual real substantial demand for it in the market. So don't assume the demand. Do the dirty work of testing it out, and don't cry if people don't give you the feedback that you want. Right? Yeah. Go to the next thing. Right.
Yep.
So that's great. So as if you're sitting down with coffee for someone that was saying like, hey, love technology, I love what you guys are doing. I could really see myself taking a similar path, wanting to build a business. How would you counsel him, or what advice would you give him, assuming you don't want him just to, throw himself to the wolves and, just get devoured. You want to, help him to avoid maybe some of the same failures or mistakes that you made. What counseling advice would you give him, or how would you go back if given the chance, and how would you do this differently?
Yeah. I think if I'm talking to an individual that wants to kind of go down this path of starting a business or trying something new, the worst thing that I can do is immediately tell them no on whatever their ideas are. I've been told that it only makes me want to go do it more. You know, it
So you're
grinds
saying
you.
no means yes.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yes.
Whatever. But I think you gotta nurture them, and I would push to say, okay, if this is what you really want to do, go out and make sure that there is something here that you're going to work on, because everything that you're about to take on and do is going to affect your entire life. It's going to affect if you currently have a job, and whether you're going to stay there or work long nights, extra hours after work. It's going to affect your relationships with your significant other, your family, and it could affect you financially. And so when you take these risks on, or these new challenges on, they can be extremely rewarding, but they can also they could hurt you too. And maybe not in a severe manner, but maybe little things here and there that over time hurt you in the long run. And so make sure that, go ask these questions. Go ask a potential user. Make sure that there's a market there. And if you can start to put together a clear picture of what people want and what you're trying to do, then you will be confident in why you're doing it with your purpose. If you can explain it to your wife, and your wife says, yeah, okay, I don't fully get it, but that's pretty cool, and I get that people like that, and okay, you can do that. Like, that's cool with me, and she'll support you, or your husband will support you. Like, it comes down to, like, you got to have that validation that there's something there. And if you don't, and you just jump into it, it will put a lot of stress on your life, and ultimately you probably will fail. And so I wouldn't say don't do it, this won't work because of this. I would just push them to make sure they uncover every stone that they can before they kind of jump into whatever they're going after.
Count the cost, right? As much as you can. Like you said, if you're going to do this, right, realize that, what's the worst case scenario? Like, what's the worst that could happen? And are you okay with that, right? And really trying to tease things out, counting the cost, trying to measure twice, cut once, right? And there's only so much we can know, right? So there is risk involved. But all of life is a risk, right? So that's helpful. Would you say that that's a helpful way to think of it? Is count the cost, and
it's absolutely. I think that's kind of what I'm saying. I think I still have to go through it right now, talking to potential VCs and trying to raise investment or pitch the next idea that we're working on. They still come back to me with, well, have you proved the market? What are the numbers looking like? Do you have traction? Do you have this? And it's very frustrating because you know that there's something there, but you can always iterate and go find more information on it. And that's what they push to do. And it's very easy to kind of shake it off and push it away and not kind of see where they're coming from. And so when you're young, when you maybe not are experienced, after 20, 30 years of having plenty of rejections or failed ideas, you just think everything's going to be successful. And I get that, and there's nothing wrong with that because you've got a lot of ambition. But when somebody is telling you, hey, just go dig in a little bit further to make sure this is right, take that to heart and go dig in further. And make sure before you commit that this is something that is worth your time, you can do, is achievable, and ultimately is worth fighting for.
And there's so much good in there.
It's easier said than done too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's extremely hard. I fight with that same problem still today. It's I can eat my own words. It's just one of those things where it's like you're focused on something and you lose sight of the peripherals and what's going on. So I think the most successful people are the ones that can do that. They pull themselves back, they validate what's going on, they see a clear need, and it's iteration then. At that point it's iteration. Facebook isn't what Facebook is today. It had a million different versions of itself to get to this point. McDonald's. If you ever watch, was The Founder on Netflix, where they kind of show like how Ray Kroc went through. He's just iterating and iterating on all these different restaurant ideas that were there until he made it more efficient and made McDonald's profitable because it was efficient.
And that's actually a really interesting way to think about just someone's life in general. Maybe someone works 6 months here, or a year and a half there, or a year here. You often see this in the tech world. You got a year here, a year here, a year here, a year here, right? Versus, hey, I've been in this job for 40 years, right? For the same company for 40 years. And in a sense, it's a sort of iteration. Maybe people aren't clear what they want in life, what they're going after, and so they're iterating, right?
Yeah.
They're zigging here, they're zagging there, they're like a pinball, and they're being told you need to stop that and just be somewhere. And that could be the right answer.
Show loyalty.
Right. It could be the right answer. It could also be the wrong answer, right? In their own lives, they're going through a process of iteration, and they're saying, well, this doesn't work. Well, what about this? This doesn't work. But each time they're getting a little bit closer to where they need to be, and they're eventually going to find what works and what works for them.
And you could zig into the wrong path.
Exactly.
But that's life.
Right.
And if you can zag backwards into a better opportunity, you've grown as an individual and as a human. And if you're not trying to do those types of things, then and there's nothing to say that that's wrong for working in a company for 40 years either.
No, not at all.
You can zig and zag within that company and do a lot of things in there. But you gotta grow. You gotta learn. You gotta take those failures and build upon it.
And so that's something you'd for sure tell someone, like, to lean into that process of iteration and in this path and building a business. You're not going to get it right the first time, and how important that even the feedback from the market, from the community, from the customers that you're trying to reach out to can help to shape that product. Not only was there a million iterations of Facebook, but there's thousands of minds that help to shape it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like you don't know the team that's going to come alongside you, all that kind of stuff, but and even like you were talking about before about pitching, investors, and they're wanting to know, like, if there's the right demand. Well, how much is enough? How much can you quantify? Because until they're trying to hedge their bets, right? In a sense, and that makes sense. It's like, all right, like we're at some point we're gonna have to jump here, right? Like, and like when is that threshold?
If I'm creating a new market, where's the stats?
Where's
on the market?
Demand, right? Exactly.
But there's a balance.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, that's good, man. So, count the cost. Don't tell someone no. If you're in a position where you're giving advice or counsel in this regard, and someone's coming to you with these kind of big dreams and aspirations, affirm the big dream. Tell them to keep dreaming, right?
Yeah.
Don't tell them no, and then and just be aware. In a sense, it's good to be really focused, right? But you don't want to be focused at the expense of being blinded to the peripherals, right? So when you're doing the job or when you're building the business, it's good to be focused on that, not trying to do a million different things, but also take time to zoom out, back off, and really have to see the big picture. And oftentimes we need other people to help us do that, see things that we can't see.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
Oh man, well this has been really good. Yeah, I feel like we could just chat for hours and the good stuff. But alas, there's a world to be conquered. You can't sit here and drink coffee forever, or Mexican hot chocolates forever. So these are actually these are fun questions. They're some of my favorites, and it's just everyone has a different answer, which is really, really cool. So I'm excited for our listeners to hear, for me to hear, in your life and your journey. There's probably several people that impact us, they shape us. Sometimes that can be a positive thing, right? Like a mentor, a coach, a teacher, something like that, of a parent. Like sometimes it can be a negative thing, right? We've had people on the show that have been told that they will never be anything in life. And for them, that was one of the most impactful encounters they've ever had, because it and made them who they are today, right? So it could be a negative impact. But for Justin Seidl and your life to date, who is someone that comes to mind when you think of your success, your journey, your formation as a man, as an entrepreneur? Who is someone that you would say, I wouldn't be here today without them?
Yeah. There's three that specifically come to mind, and maybe I'll share on one that's a little more interesting than the standard response. So my father, for personal reasons, personal things that don't probably need to be discussed, but he's just always been a very solid figure in my life.
Awesome.
On how to be a person,
That's so
how
important.
to handle yourself, how to be a good husband, a good father. My last boss at New Coast Ventures in Chicago, his name's Nick Cremitis. Very, very strong entrepreneur, but on top of that, I think as a businessman, he is one of the most professional and personable individuals that I've ever met.
Awesome.
From the sense that you can be successful, you can be a sort of wolf in the business landscape, but you can do it with heart and you can do it with passion in a very positive manner.
Not be an asshole.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And he drove, every person I'm about to talk to drove me to my limits to become a better person. Cool. The third person was my coach in high school for wrestling at Luxembourg. We have one of the better wrestling programs in the entire state for the last 20-some years. We've got multiple team state and individual state titles. I was part of 2 championship teams, started on varsity for one of them.
That's awesome.
And out of all that, it was a high school sport. So you, as a kid in high school, that's everything to you in your world. And doing that stuff is great. You can celebrate it. I can look back and be really proud of it. But my coach, he's no longer coach there anymore. He's retired. His name's Bob Burso. One of the things that he always taught me was that you can't just be satisfied with what you're doing. There's always ways to make yourself better and push harder. And when it was tough and, I'd cut weight, we're wrestling, we're physically, our bodies are hurting, doing things that maybe a standard athlete wasn't necessarily doing. And when you're competing, you're not hiding on a football field with 10 other teammates and 11 other players opposite of you. It's you and one other person under a spotlight, exposed to everybody that's watching.
Yeah.
And I just have these vivid memories of when I was at my worst, breaking down, having a hard time. He was always there, but he was stern, and he was very, this is not the time to do this. You've got this in front of you, and you've worked this entire season to do this. So you are not going to sit here and waste your opportunity by thinking that you can't do this.
Yeah.
I can easily say there's 14 starters on a wrestling roster that have different weight classes. I was probably the 12th, 13th best at times on our roster. I mean, we won state multiple times. We were competing at a national level. So my perspective at the time was that I was one of the worst on the team. Looking back, I was one of the worst on a team, but I would have probably been one of the better ones on any other team. And I took from that a lot of my work ethic and persevering through a lot of difficult challenges.
Yeah.
I struggled. I cut a lot of weight, so I struggled a lot with making sure that I'm making weight and dieting, and on top of just practices, going to school, and every other emotion that goes through a teenager's life. But he was always there, and he always just made sure that I kept my head on straight and did things the right way. And that's, you hear about sports teams that do things a professional way, a business-like mentality with, we had a code of conduct on how we had to conduct ourselves. We didn't have to dress up in suits and ties, but we were held to a standard that we are great at what we do. and we're great at everything else that we do. So there's no time to mess around and not be great at anything that we attempt to do.
And that's really that positive version of pride, right? How you carry yourself and conduct yourself.
Absolutely. And maybe that's that. I learned that and maybe took too much from that, but it also helped me to appreciate what I'm doing and understanding my own value in myself.
Yeah.
Because everything I do has value, and it's how much I make of that value.
Yeah, that's so powerful. We need people to help us to see that we're capable of so much more than what we think, and even in the hard moments, right? We can start to get really limited in our mindset and our doubting in our own abilities, and have someone come in with a straight face and say, "You're better than this, man.
Yeah,
get back up and fight." Right? We need that in our life. That's awesome. Very, very cool. Okay, so here's a fun one. Not the best, but the worst. The worst advice. You're sitting at a coffee shop. You're grinding away, right? Building the next latest, greatest deal. You're going to change the world. And you hear Robert at table 9 tell his buddy, Steve, "Hey, you should go do this." You just stop. You freeze. It's the worst advice you've ever heard. And you're going to get up and go teach Robert a lesson. Put him in a Nelson, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. And so anyway, but yeah, for you, man, what's the worst advice you're floating around these days, or even somewhere along your way that you've been given? You're like, I think back on it, it's like that's the worst advice I've ever heard.
I don't know if there's been a moment where I've heard really terrible advice, like just in that vivid sense of like, are you freaking kidding me? But
just say that. He's joking.
I think a lot of times I hear conversations that involve money.
Yeah.
And specifically when somebody's like, "Oh my God, dude, I have this idea, this and this. It will make tons of money." And I'm like, "You're wrong." Like, no matter what, the fact that that's what your thought process is with it, you're probably wrong. And I want to jump in. Most times, it's people just at a bar doing whatever. Yeah. But when it is serious and people are discussing money over what they're actually trying to solve or do, that to me is a clear indicator that it hasn't been well thought out and it's not going to be successful.
So you're saying that would be something not to do in pitching investors. They've got this idea and it's going to make tons of money.
Yeah. Money is never...
Not a way to raise venture.
I mean, money is the underlying thing that everybody understands and wants value from. But that is not what they want to hear when it comes to why you're establishing a business or you're trying to build out something. Because let's face it, if your primary concern is that it's going to make money, that mentality bleeds into what you're building.
Yeah.
And then your users are going to recognize it as the service just wants to take my money.
Yeah.
That's all they want. That's why scams do scam people, but in the end, people recognize that they're a scam because it is driven on making money from you, taking your money, and not doing anything else.
Right.
And so when you lead into a business that is all about just making money and not providing value back to the user, they pick up on that faster than anybody else.
Yeah, everyone has an innate BS detector, right? And they can sense, like, as a company, you want to give more in use value for your product or service than what you're taking in cash value. And you do that by leading with people first. And the money will come, and the money is really important, right? We should all want to build wealth and make a lot of money because we do more good in the world. So you're not saying that the money's bad, but you're saying if you're putting the money first as far as in building a company and leading
that's the reason?
Right, if that's the reason, probably not going to last too long as a business. Might not go well for you.
I don't even think it will launch, to be honest, because who's going to use it, or provide a service to you? Because you're missing the point of why it would make a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Well, last but not least here, it's rush hour. Every major city in the world, billions of people stuck in a traffic jam. They're listening to what not to do, right, to get their own lives out of a traffic jam, so to speak. And they look up and they see a billboard. It's Justin Seidl's billboard. What message do they see? What message do you want the world to see?
Oh, man. The first thing that pops in my head is I just want to buy Bitcoin on it, and then have my little Vertbase logo underneath. But I don't know. I think it would just be iterate. That's it. Just iterate. That's everything we do in life.
Yeah.
And if you're not failing, you're not succeeding, and you're not really living your life. So just iterate on everything. That's what I got.
Well said. Well said. Well, Justin, this has been awesome. Bonus question. 3 books that have been really impactful for you. Go.
Trademarks and Symbols. It's more of a picture book, but it shows basically symbols and trademarks from companies for the last 100 years.
Nice. Cool.
It's pretty cool. I don't know the full title. It is like the origin of consciousness of the bicameral mind. So it's the theory that we didn't start with a consciousness in our head. We had the left side of our brain and the right side of our brain, which control 2 different aspects of us. And at some point, they started communicating to each other, which is believed to be your conscious, which is the voice inside your head.
Interesting.
And there's a lot of research done based on the way we wrote in the very first portion of the Bible was very first-person type of view, and a lot of storytelling from the first person. Then, all of a sudden, in the later chapters of the Bible, the New Testament, we're starting to talk in third person. And that's seen in, I believe, like the Iliad is something that's seen in, and a couple other historical things where over time you see this transition of thought process and communicating our internal thoughts that wasn't done before. And so that I read that from basically watching Westworld on HBO with artificial intelligence, and that's kind of what that's based on. Is at some point a spark and a bridge happened where you start thinking other than just like an animal does, where you do things to survive. You start thinking about, well, what if I just did this because it's fun?
Yeah.
So
whoever said HBO wasn't instructive, right?
Yeah.
Third and book? Last one.
I don't know. I'm blanking.
What was your last read?
I'm in the middle of a book called Rhinoceros Success.
You recommend it?
I don't know yet. I'm just digging in. It's about charging forward, which might be. I want to read through it because I don't know if it's like against some of the things that.
We'll put an asterisk next to that.
Yeah.
One. So awesome. And Justin, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
LinkedIn.
Okay.
Can't guarantee I will respond to everybody. I do get a lot of random requests now.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
But happy to. If anybody reaches out, referrals are a great way too. If you know somebody that knows me, I always recommend a warm referral because that opens up the door a lot faster. And happy to talk about anything and everything.
Awesome. Justin, man, this has been a blast. I've learned so much, and I'm really excited for our listeners. So excited for what you guys are doing at Vertbase, and excited to keep the conversation going.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it, and I was happy to be on the call or on the podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great conversation with Justin. I learned so much. I hope you did too. Connect with him. His contact info is in the show notes. And who knows, maybe you guys could partner together with Vertbase. That'd be amazing in driving digital currency forward. But let's recap. Don't let pride make you stubborn. Do not let pride make you stubborn. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I think we maybe all wrestle with that because we all wrestle with pride. It has that way of cementing us. But hey, let's check that at the door and remain humble. Second, don't assume demand. Don't assume demand. This is a common theme that's coming through. If you're taking notes or you recall, test the market. It's one thing to think that, hey, I think people would really, really like this. It's another thing to actually know that they would. And one surefire way of knowing that that there is a demand there is the money. Show me the money, right? Who is actually willing to pay for whatever you have, to pay for your idea, to pay for your service, to pay for your product? Put your money where your mouth is, right? And last but not least, don't tell someone no. Don't tell someone no. I think there's a few different ways you could run with this one, but don't tell someone no. how can you make it a yes? How can you expand your capacity and your ability? And the other thing is another way to come at this is don't tell someone no, in that you're speaking into their life and who they can or can't be. We have to just be careful of how powerful our words are. And when we tell someone, no, you can't do this, or no, you won't be that, and that's really powerful. So check your no at the door. Leave it at the door. Don't tell someone no. Well, again, I want to thank you for listening. This podcast is about you, for you. I couldn't do it without you. If you've been helped by this, and I hope you have, it's my aim to give you more in use value than I take from you in cash value. If you've been helped by this, share it with somebody else. One great way you can do that is by going to Apple Podcasts and giving us a 5-star review, but only if you think the show deserves it. If you do, leave a thoughtful, honest review, and that'd be a huge help to us. Make sure you connect with us on social media. You can find me Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at startwithWNTD, at startwithWNTD. You can check out the website, startwithWNTD.com. Find me on LinkedIn, Kyle M. Schmitz, and you can follow along some fun stuff there. I would love to keep the conversation going on all those channels and to hear from you too. Again, who do you want on the show? Your thoughts on things, etc. Remember, if you are a business and you think you've got a really relevant, valuable message that you would love to be able to make known in this community, connect with me and let's see if we'd be good partners together. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.